In this video, I will show you my city, Rio de Janeiro. Come with me to see a city that captures the essence of Brazil, a city that fuses European and African culture. Come with me to see how those living in the favelas view the streets below. Along the way, we'll visit Brazil's most popular football club, and we'll discover the strict traditions governing the seemingly bacchanalian chaos of Carnival. I hope to show you a city in transition, a city that has played host to the first South American Olympics, but one which has rarely faced a more uncertain future. When I arrived in Brazil in 2011, it was Rio that instantly won me over. There are few flights more dramatic than landing at Rio's domestic airport, Santos Dumont. Like many Rio journeys, ours today begins on a beach. No image is more associated with Rio than the beach. The city's sands act as its open space. The beach is also a great social leveller, bringing rich and poor together. It is also, of course, the place to show off those famous Brazilian bodies, both bronzed and toned, and, well, bronzed and less toned. But rather than the city beaches of Copacabana and Ipanema, I like to go with my family to the Grumari Nature Reserve in the city's far west.
Rio is a city full of surprises. This remote beach, Prainha, which today is a little bit misty due to the heavy surf, is only 5 to 10 minutes away from Olympic Park, the centre of many of the events of the Games. Just down the road from here is the Restinga de Marambaia, a 45-kilometre long stretch of pristine surf. In fact, it's due to the charms of Rio that Brazil has become my second home. It's here that I met my wife, Annie, and we had our son, 11-month-old Arthur.
But the first thing, after the stunning natural scenery that many gringos notice, are Rio's favelas or slums, climbing the steep mountains. Reporting in the favelas has been an important part of my work here. These communities have got a bad name for drug and violence problems from the media and films, but how accurate is this impression? To find out, we call on Simone Pereira, who runs a hostel in Cantagalo, a favela that overlooks the most elite neighborhoods of the city.
Eu nasci aqui, o meu pai nasceu aqui, a minha mãe nasceu aqui, a minha avó nasceu aqui.
The government estimates that 6% of Brazilians live in favelas. Less well known is that many, like Cantagalo, are proud communities. Cantagalo claims to have been established by freed slaves more than 100 years ago. The people up here refer to the favela as the morro, or the hill. The affluent neighbourhoods below are the rua, or the street. Up here there is safety and life. The kids can play outside. Down there is fear.
Lá na rua é uma coisa morta. Você acredita que o meu pessoal estrangeiro chega aqui e fala: como pode? Na rua ninguém fala comigo. E aqui vem o hello my friend, né?
Simone says a community policing program installed ahead of the Olympics some years ago helped improve life in the favela initially, but the promised aid for sewage projects and social problems never came. Clearly, the favelas suffer from poverty and crime. You should not romanticize life in them. But if there is one thing that strikes me whenever I visit them, it is how normal they seem. If it is warmth and humanity you are seeking, the hill wins any time over the street. Yet, if there is one important element connecting the poor in places like Cantagalo to the street below, it is football. I visit my good friend Carlos Langoni, a member of Flamengo, Brazil's biggest football club with 36 million supporters. 6 times champion of Brazil's primary league, the Campeonato Brasileiro, Flamengo is home to great players such as Zico and Romário. Its headquarters lie on the shores of Lagoa, southern Rio's stunning lagoon.
Brazilian football is a good example of the Brazilian paradox. At the same time, you have the natural talents, you have the fantastic players that play all over the world. And Brazil was 5 times world champion. At the same time, you have a tremendous disorganization, a tremendous lack of leadership. And that goes from the roots of the clubs up to the federations and the confederations. So again, this is under transformation.
Carlos believes that not only football is changing, but also Brazil's economy and its political scene, battered by a deep recession, corruption scandals, and the impeachment of left-wing President Dilma Rousseff. Latin America's biggest economy seems to be hitting the bottom. Rio, which depends on revenue from offshore oil fields, could take longer to recover because of a fall in the oil price.
We are in a typical transition from a very deep and prolonged recession towards a very still uncertain, but it looks like a gradual and slow recovery.
The other element that unites this disparate city is, of course, Carnival. It might be a national myth, but most Brazilians like to think they have at least a little bit of African ancestry.
I've come to Portela, one of the great samba schools of Rio, here in the north of the city. I've always wanted to know a little bit more about samba. I've actually been in a samba parade, I've put on the costume and marched through the Sambódromo, and in fact I even met my wife at a samba bar. But I'm curious to find out more about the elements that really make samba tick, about the dances, about the rules, and about the show. So let's go inside Portela and find out.
In Portela today, we are greeted by the school's president, Marcos Vieira de Silva, a burly former military police officer. The schools often have a security element, from one side of the law or the other, associated with their management. He introduces us to Daniele Nascimento, the porta-bandeira, or flag carrier, of the samba school. With her is the school's mestrisala, or master of the ball, Alex Marcelino. While foreigners tend to focus on the queen of the battery, this couple are the royalty of a samba school. They are the custodians of its flag, which they regard with as much reverence as an army would its standard.
A minha mãe, a porta-bandeira, ela é dos ícones da nossa arte, Vilma Nascimento. Ela é muito considerada, conceituada. Então, desde pequenininha, eu via minha mãe dançando e tinha vontade de ser porta-bandeira. Então, tem do sentido da história mesmo, antigamente, que a gente tinha que proteger o pavilhão. O mestre-sala também via para proteger das outras escolas que antes roubavam o pavilhão.
Rio's history, reflected in Portela's traditions, is one of the things I love about the city. One of my favourite places to hang out is in the downtown area, whose historic buildings tell the story of Brazil's past, from a colonial empire of the Portuguese to a republic in the 19th century. The jewel of the centre of the city is the Confeitaria Colombo, a Belle Époque-era cafe said to be one of the few of its kind surviving in the world. Until the 1950s, when Brazil's capital moved from Rio to Brasilia, all of the most important conversations happened here.
Quando o Rio de Janeiro, a capital federal, mudou para Brasília, ela começou a experimentar período de decadência.
Today, Confeitaria Colombo is thriving thanks to Roberto. He is restoring the facade much as the city government has done to Rio through the Olympics. But Rio needs much more than a facelift to solve its deeper social problems, like those represented by the divisions between the hill and the street. Faced with such complicated questions, I'm going to do what residents of Rio do in such situations, rich and poor. I'm going to go down to the beach and have a caipirinha. A caipirinha is made by chopping a lime and putting it in a glass or shaker with shovel loads of sugar. Next comes about 50 milliliters of cachaça, the sugarcane spirit.
So that's how you make a caipirinha, one of the world's most beach-friendly, delicious, and I have to say, lethal drinks.
As the effects of the caipirinha wear off, I'm left to think about what the future holds for Rio. Once the city recovers from the hangover after the Olympics, its search for a new identity will continue. For centuries, the capital of Latin America's biggest country, it suffered an identity crisis when Brasilia came into being. Today, it is rebranding itself as a centre for major events. But whatever it becomes, it will always be a city of contrasts, whether between mountain and sea, or favela and luxury condominium. And therein lies what is fascinating about Rio, and why I think of it as my city. Joe Leahy for the Financial Times, Rio de Janeiro.